Welcome back, everybody. So we're gonna be doing some more sculpting today, I hope, and continue where we stopped yesterday. So let's just check here. Hey, all right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so let me just share my screen straight away here so you're not wasting your time. Screen 2, all right? So you should be seeing it now. So that's basically another hour, I think, on top of that. But basically, by hour, I mean not of full-on work. Basically, while I was waiting to process the videos, right? I just kept poking around and then watching stuff on YouTube like I normally do. And then that's basically where I stopped here. I'm gonna be breaking down a couple of things that I did, and then really explore the forms a little bit further, because there's a lot missing. It's basically just a sketch at this point. I mentioned yesterday, for example, sometimes I start with one single reference, which was the case for the African guy. So I had plenty of freedom to try things. But yesterday I got curious about this lady. So what I did, I actually got that image of her and I dropped on Google. And then what popped for me was this. Check this out. It was kind of interesting. So I put her image right there. Oops, let me just bring this one up here. Put her image right there and upload it right to Google. And then look at what found me here, like a possible related search: cute old lady, old Asian people. So that's basically the topic that came up. So if you go forward, that's her picture in there, and it's under this this cute old Asian people. Isn't that awesome? And she looks very cute, actually. So looking further, I started looking at this. It's like the titles in here, and then this one popped a lot of times: Naga woman, and I had no knowledge about it. And so it was very interesting. She's part of one of the tribes of this Naga land that's actually in India. It's like the northeast of India. And they are basically very close to Nepal and China. And so it's kind of like this community of tribes in there. And she's part of this AO Naga. And they speak their own dialect and stuff. And they have some very interesting features. So I was looking for other people from this Naga, AO Naga at Nagaland. And then I found lots of their costumes and traditions and stuff. I was looking for a profile picture that I could use. And then check this out. When I put a AO Naga on Google straight away, I got this picture here that's actually illustrating the Wikipedia. So if you look at this girl here and this girl here, check this thing out. It's the same person, dude. Looks very different because of the angle and everything, right? But you start looking at stuff it's like some lines in her face, some indications she has. It's pretty much the same person, just the expression is different, obviously. But the funny little ears in there, like some of those lines in here, it's like they're pretty much spot on, those 3 lines in there. Everything is basically she is the same person, the little wispy hair over the ear in there, just in the color, obviously, here, like the little necklace, So very cool. So I was so happy that I found another picture of her, because this way I can start putting my puzzle together. And also today, looking at of more stuff, looking for, I did a search saying old Asian tribal lady profile or something like that. And then down the road, all the way down Google, this picture came up. Look, same lady from another angle. So this is total jackpot, because I thought it would be imagining a lot of stuff, just using a single reference like I did for the African guy. And then look at that. So I got a 3/4. I got slightly from the bottom, so I can see the nostrils in that a little bit. And that front picture with the cute smile. So this is going to be pretty cool. It's I was actually thinking about going about transforming her a little bit more into an elf. It's maybe some longer ears, kind of like a Yoda kind of lady would be cool. So yeah, it's the kind of stuff sometimes you get lucky, with references. In the case of actors, obviously you're going to find a shitload of that stuff. But when you're looking for someone so random like that, it's it was a big jackpot. And then obviously I started looking for related people, it's other Naga ladies, like this one here is also from the same tribe. So it's like younger, you know, but at least I can have an idea about the bone structure. And, you know, probably like obviously without teeth, this would be deflated, right? So it would come down. But, you know, a couple of things you do when you're doing research, right? Like it's cool to understand like the subject. And then I also found this woman here. She has a Flickr that's called Nagaland 2008, and then she has a bunch of pictures from people from Naga as well, from this Naga land tribes, and then some of them are AO Nagas as well. So very cool, you know. It's like just to see the types of faces, you know, like very interesting. They have some body modifications, like some nose piercings and stuff. It's very, very cool. So yeah, that's just to show you guys what I was doing yesterday. Actually, today I did this research. Yesterday I was mostly like trying to get her into a nicer spot with some ears in there and stuff. So just before I go further here, I'm just going to show you something. Yesterday, remember when I was trying to record the video in here, like the time lapse? You guys are seeing everything here, right? Like the screen share and everything. Cool, yeah. So when I was seeing doing this, I remember I told you guys if I start using the Sculptures Pro and I go too small, it starts tessellating a lot, right? So that's why I got those areas much more tessellated in there. And then the rest, depending on the size of the brush, when you use the smooth, you can tessellate things like to really decimate it like that, right? So what happens is that if you're using a lot of the small smooth, it gets too tessellated and it's up a lot of memory. So to have an idea, for example, the scenes here, if I try to load it, check this out. See, like with the history saved, it's about 3 gigabytes, pretty big. If I save without the history, it drops to like 5, you know, like 5 megabytes. So like super small. I like saving it just for the purpose of being able to post the time lapses for you guys. But I normally like, once I'm done with that, I move on and I just like save a simpler file. So in order for me to avoid that, to prevent like from this thing, like to subdivide all the time, sometimes what you can do is like this, look. So you see like the ear here has, it needs more resolution, right? So I can just do a smooth. I have my Sculptures Pro on. So I'm gonna just smooth this to add a little bit more geometry in there, just in those, to break those big squares. This one is a little bit, I can add a little bit more here. And then maybe like around here, see some more squares in there. So I'm gonna smooth this, just add more geometry where I need only. So maybe around here, and then around here a little bit more, so I can sculpt the nostrils. And maybe around here, you get a little bit more right here. So selectively, I'm just like more geometry to those areas I'm gonna need the most, right? But then once you're done with this, you can just like pretend that this is like Dynamesh, right? Like you can just like finish doing this little smooth in the areas you need, nothing more. And you can just turn it off, turn off Sculptures Pro. You keep sculpting normally as if it was a Dynamesh. And that way you don't need to keep subdividing all the time. It goes way faster. And then you prevent from like having like a super high density mesh at some point, you know. So at this point, she has only like 216K, which is perfect for this kind of stuff, like just blocking. And it's a good way to go, you know. So that's the trick there. So we're going to be talking about today about the scale. We're going to have to find out like what's the average size of a human face, for example, right? The length of it. So we can actually transfer that to our Maya scene and set up everything. Probably like create some lights as well today. I try to do this like from the get-go. Try to create like some little environment. It can be very simple with just a few lights, you know, it's like maybe some area lights, maybe like an HDRI map. And then we can start like iterating on that scene, you know, it's like that becomes our working scene for that from that point on. And basically like any tweaks we do, we are actually comparing to a scene that has like a physically accurate, you know, environment to be able to evaluate the forms, you know. Working in ZBrush is great, you know, it's super fast, you can get all those polygons, but you don't get like a super nice precision on anything, right? I mean, like the camera is not something like, although it's much better than it was before, I still don't trust it. It's not perfect yet, right? I have my cameras set to universal perspective that they introduced like 1 or 2 versions ago. And this one is working here. Sometimes depending on the scene, not all of them are gonna work. So this one is basically, I start from a cube that was basically generated by ZBrush, right? That little default cube. So this normally works like that. But then if you're bringing a model that has like a world scale for the face, normally like it does something different. Sometimes those 3 first ones don't work, and then 35, 50, and 85 works. Sometimes just 85 works. It's kind of random, you know? So I don't completely trust it. On top of that, the lighting is just, it's kind of like a simulation of shadows here, right? Obviously, you can do like quick renders like that and then check things. You know, if you have like a lighting, you can pretty much like change the lighting setup in here to have some light that actually represents that a little bit better. But it's not something you can completely trust, you know. So that's why I keep like, I create a scene in Maya that I can actually iterate on it and just like evaluate things, you know. It's like just have like maybe like a 45-degree light, kind of like a Rembrandt light to start with, and then you use like an HDRI as a fill or anything else, you know. It's like normally I have a scene with let's say like with 5 to 10 different HDRIs plugged into different dome lights, and then you can just go through it, you know. In the past, like in some of those classes you saw, I probably have like 2 or 3 of them. I'm trying to keep like the number higher now. I downloaded more and I tested more stuff. If you saw the African guide when I did, you know, it's like I have all those lighting tests. I actually liked a bunch of those, and I spent quite some time, you know, it's like researching those HDRI maps. And then those are kind of like my favorites, kind of like indoors, you know, with a nice big window, and to get some nice reflections in the eyes and things like that. For the record, if you guys are new to this, if you watched some previous videos, you probably know this, but if you're new, this is the website we're going to be referring to a lot. So HDRI Haven. So this website here, HDRI Haven, is where you're going to find all the HDRIs you're ever going to need here. You know, you can pay for very, very expensive packages you can find out there, professional they call. But this one is basically like an open source thing. You can just go ahead and download anything you need from here. And then I just strongly recommend you guys. I'm not affiliated with the guys. I just think they are doing like a phenomenal job with this. They have a Patreon. And what happens with the Patreon is if you donate like, I believe like $3, I think it's $3 a month or something like that, which is nothing. They give you access to the entire like Google Drive containing all those images in there. So you can just go to Google Drive and just like swoop the whole thing, you know, it's like download everything. So it's pretty cool, you know, just to support those guys. Yeah, so again, not affiliated, but I really like this stuff. The HDRI maps in here, they're like separated, like, you know, by themes. So I normally go for the indoor stuff, which I like a lot. And then this one is a very cool one, the old bus depot. So this one is a cool one, like any of those here, actually, you know, it's like auto shop, but that one is a good one. Like even those ones like the artist workshop, you know, it's a matter of like really downloading a bunch of them. And then every time you click in one of them, for example, if I click this one here that I like, it's going to show me the different resolutions you can download. I normally stick with 4Ks only. And then here's like a demonstration of, you know, from different angles, what it is. And then with some models applied in there. And then the cool part is that it shows like the similar ones here, the related ones. And those ones are really cool too. This one and this one here are very nice ones. Yeah, so it's very cool, you know. It's like just go ahead and visit HDRI Haven and take a look at the HDRIs and start downloading stuff, you know. Download a bunch of them and start testing in your scenes. Obviously, they're going to be, you know, teaching you guys if you never did this in Maya before. But so for now, what we're going to do with this old lady head here is that you see, like, we only started from a cube, so there's no reference of size or anything. So the first thing I'm going to do is just going to export this. I'm going to go to my export button. I'm going to go to my OBJ folder we created yesterday inside of my working folder. And I'm going to just do like a sketch one, something like that, anything. Just going to save it in there. All right. So it's computer sometimes like it behaves a little bit slower than the previous one. So let me just open the scene we saved yesterday, just to make sure we have the same scene that we did yesterday. This one already has some of the stuff set up, right? Like we already have the color space set to aces in here. and everything else. So let's double check that. So I'm gonna click this icon here just to double check if my color management, yeah, it's already plugged in there, right? So we are good to go with this one. And I probably have already all the render settings set according to yesterday. So the name in there, you know, the samples, all that stuff. So that's a good scene to start with. So one thing you're gonna have to do in your Maya scene, if you're new to Maya and you've never imported anything from ZBrush, you're gonna have to do this. You have to do this just the first time. From this point on, if you close Maya correctly, it should save. So, but you have to do this first time. So when you go to File and you click Import, instead of clicking Import, just click the little option box in here, little square. What? Oh, I guess I'm gonna have to click the import and then switch in here. So let's do this. So let's see if I click OBJ in here. There is one spot in here all the way to the bottom. If you're using an OBJ for the file type in here, you see like it's gonna be sensitive to the context. So if it's any different type of file in here, it's gonna, this whole thing here, this whole panel is gonna adapt to the options related to that type of file. So if you switch to OBJ, it's gonna show you a bunch of different references all the way to the bottom in here. You're gonna see by default, Maya gonna have clicked multiple objects. That means that if you're bringing something from ZBrush, for example, and you have like multiple polygroups, the model is gonna be completely chopped. It's gonna bring like in a bunch of different pieces, and it's gonna be a gigantic mess. So the first thing you're gonna do before you even start doing anything, you're gonna click single object, right? And then, and that's it. You're gonna have to always use the single object. But once you do this one time, it should be saved, so it should be fine. So let's do OBJ, sketch, single object selected. So let's see what's the size that lady is gonna come here. So not too bad, looks, you know, in relation to what ZBrush had, like from the cube, it actually looks pretty good. But let's see, let's measure this whole thing. So the first thing we're gonna do here, or the second thing, because you already did something, it's gonna be, for example, like a quick search on Google. If you do like, for example, a human face average, let's see, height, something like that. So you're gonna get, let's see, average height of men's faces was, so basically like, oh, centimeters, what's that? That's not 179 centimeters, that's millimeters, right? That's weird. What? That's so bizarre. That's not correct. Let's see if we can find, let's see, around, yeah, let's see, about 18 centimeters. Okay, that makes much more sense. Yeah, okay. Feet have a face length of about 18.9 centimeters, almost 7.5 inches. Hairline to chin. So the hairline to chin. So that's basically the size of the face. In average, you're probably gonna get around like 9 inches. So let's see if we can find one. Let's see. It used to be probably like I was using a different search because it was easy to see exactly what it was. 7.5 has, no, that's not it. Let's see, height on average human. Okay, so this one here. So female, 9.4, male 9.4. So 99 percentile, right? So we're looking for the average. So let's say like 8.6 inches, and then 99 percentile is like a 9.4. So we can safely use like a 9 inches for kind of like an average between like 50% and 99%. So kind of like an average, a higher average, right? So yeah, let's consider like 9 inches for the size of the face. Probably in her case, she's probably tiny, would be something more, you know, in the lower end. So I might go with that. So let's see. Let's do this first. Let's go to our window, settings and preferences, and then preferences. And then under settings, I'm gonna switch this to inches for now. And then you see like the grid is changing in there. So each one of those squares is 1 inch. So you see that she's very tiny. If I switch here, you're gonna see the grid is gonna get smaller and smaller to millimeters, centimeters, meter, inch, right? So I'm gonna keep on inch for now. I'm gonna save it and close. So now we're going to use this little tool here. So if you're not familiar with Maya, by default, you have this view in here. You can actually switch to 4 views, clicking this button here, or switching back to full, right? But then if you are, for example, like in full, you can just press spacebar, just press and release very fast. And you switch between those 4 to 1 view, right? Then you have access to this one here, for example. In her case, basically like she is flipped, right? Like, so she's facing, you see my Z axis in there? So she's facing the opposite direction. So that's why the front is looking like her back. So the first thing I'm gonna do, since this is just a concept, right? I'm gonna click the head itself, and then you can go to the second tab of our XGen Interactive Groom preset, the workspace, right? I'm gonna click this one. I'm gonna just expand this so I can see what's going on. And then under rotate, let's do like 180 degrees. And then you're gonna freeze this. So one thing about Maya as well, I mean, like I'm trying to do a little bit of the basics here if you guys are not familiar with it. But remember I said that I have like all those shortcuts created in here. The way it works is like this. So all of those things here are functions you're gonna find inside of these menus, right? So if I wanna create like a shortcut to freeze the transformations, for example, because right now she has a rotation of 180, but I wanna zero the whole thing. So one way to do that would be going under modify and then freeze transformations and clicking in the option box. I don't know why the option box are not opening for me. I wonder if it is, oh, it's opening the other side here. Okay, there you go. So the freeze transformation is going to open this one. You can actually select if you want to freeze, just translate, rotate, or scale, whatever, right? And then you would just like click apply and that's it. But let's say you want to create like a nice little tab in here for your stuff, your custom stuff. One way to do this, you're going to click this little gear in here and you can just say new shelf, right? That's, you're going to give the name and then that's it. It's going to be like an empty shell in here. And then to create your shortcuts, you're going to do this. For example, you're going to go to where I was before, modify, reset transformations, right? And then you're going to make sure that you have everything set the way you want, like translate, blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to do this, modify, freeze transformations first. You're going to press Control and Shift and then click it. And then you see what happened in there, create the little icon. And I'm going to do the same for the reset. So I have like a freeze and reset. So for anything you find in those menus, if you want to create like any shortcut, for example, this one, Control Shift, click, and then you're going to create a little shortcut. Then just remember to save the shelves, right? Like once you're done, save all shelves. So to delete, you just right click and press delete. You can remove that. You can actually click in each one of them and just move it around. If you have the Control Shift, let's see. Or the middle button, sorry. Middle button, actually, you can move it around. So you can organize stuff. So in this case here, that's how I did all those guys. So I have my freeze reset in center pivot, which is also under modify. So I have center pivot right there. And one thing that we're going to be using a lot is the delete history, but not the delete history for the entire thing. It's just for the object itself. So I have both in here, both histories in here. The difference is like this. So if you go into edit, you have like delete by type history, the first one. And then you have the delete all by type history. This one takes in account all the objects, all the models in the scene, but we don't want to do that. We want to just delete the history just for the current object. So I have this one set for this shortcut. So this is like the delete constructor history in the selected object, as you can tell in there. And this one, delete for all objects. So I normally use just that one. So a combination of those things I'm going to be using is like this. So I select my model. I'm going to use like a freeze transformation first, right? Freeze, then reset. So this one put everything back to 0, 0, 0. All right. So from this point on, I can start scaling. Now her face is facing forward, which is what I need, right? The side, top, and then front. So I'm going to press spacebar to just go into it. And now let's measure this face in here. So remember I set everything to inches and we need something around a little bit less than 9 inches, right? It would be good. So you can go to your create and then you have your, let's see, create measure tools. So measure tools and you have a distant tool. So one thing you can do here, you can actually click the snap to grid. For example, this guy there. It's going to always snap to the grid, right? So by selecting this little guy there. So I click that one and I'm gonna go down. Actually, I'm gonna bring this one up later. So let's just, with shift, if you press shift and click a lot of squaring here, basically already created like basically the measure tool here is about 7 inches now. I can select just the constraints, just those little guys here, and I can move them around too. I can actually turn off, let's do one at a time because this is snapping right now. But let's just count here. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. I have 8 here. Let's do 9. And then let's bring this one up to 9. The face is gonna be right at the base here, the 0 world. So this is 9 inches right here. So with that in mind, I can actually, if I need to, I can move this stuff out of the way like this, select both and just move it away. And then now let's just move her little head up. I'm gonna turn off this snap to grid. Just gonna scale it to something around. So if that's 9, let's consider like 8.5 for her little face, which is kind of like in the lower end of it, of the average, right? Remember, we're looking at the average would be 8.5, 8.6. So a little bit lower than the average itself, than the 50th percentile. So yeah, something like this should be good. So if I measure this correctly, you can do this, check this out. You can actually use a minus and plus to increase or make it smaller, like the size of your cursor here, the manipulator. So I'm gonna do it just like with plus, just make it bigger like that. And then I can actually use that to touch just the top of her head here, just to get an idea. So if it's touching the top of the head and this one is touching the bottom and there's pretty close. So I'm getting about 8.36. I'm gonna increase the size of her head a little bit to something around, say close to 850, around here. So I can grow her head a little bit more. So I'm gonna bring it up and then scale it around here. It doesn't need to be absolutely precise, right? Like we have all kinds of sizes for head. So this should be like good enough. So let's double check from other angles now if she's in a good spot in there. I mean, like if you're rigging or something like that, we might want to, maybe bring, the face a little bit forward. So you have like this as your, neck or something like that. Maybe some people like to put around here. I'm gonna keep it around here because I'm not rigging her. I'm just like gonna be a portrait, but close enough to it, So the chin right against the floor. And then again, I mean, like this later, if you're rigging or doing something else, I mean, you're gonna be moving around, but in my case here, just gonna consider for the portrait. So that's basically what I need to do. So her face is about like 8.50 now, 8.5, and should be perfect for what I need. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just freeze and reset again. So now the pivot's right there. And then I'm gonna export this back to ZBrush. So export selection, little option box. I'm gonna select OBJ. And then you have all this stuff here, like groups, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to export any of that, just the model itself. And then just, let's go back to my OBJ folder, sketch number 2. Or I can just put like sketch scale adjusted, something like that. So I know it's the same, but it's just like adjusted. So let's go back to ZBrush. And then here I can, since it's the same resolution, I can import right on top of it. So I can just do an import. And then this guy here is gonna grow and flip, right? So now it's in that position. Just to make sure, sometimes ZBrush gets funny with the stuff when you import that way. So before I do this, I think I'm gonna do differently. I'm just gonna create like a brand new subtool just to make sure that ZBrush is not messing with the scale. Sometimes it happens. So I'm gonna delete everything. And I'm gonna delete even like anything I don't need here, like delete all. This one is fine, it's not gonna delete. So I'm gonna just click this little star here and I'm gonna import right on top of it. Since it's just the beginning of everything, just make sure that the scale is correct. So this should be the correct scale. Just as a test, let's export it again. Let's do adjusted to. We have to make sure that scale is correct from the get-go, Otherwise, the scale of the subsurface is gonna look funky. It's gonna look like too big. Nothing works. It's gonna look like a JLo, if you try to use my settings on something that's not correct. So yeah, perfect. So it's coming back to Maya in this exact same position, so we're good to go. So from this point on, let's just save this lady here. It's going to be our, it's like our test bench from now on. So let's do a save as, and I'm going to go for number 2.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Hey, sorry to interrupt.
No
I just wondered if you could show your ZBrush import-export preferences.
Oh, sure, yeah. You know what I'm trying to do this time around is because the last time, if you watched like the previous videos, I was trying to add too much stuff that was not totally related to the current state of things. So for example, like start talking about UDIMs too early and then got people a little confused. So when I start doing the export and all that stuff, then I'm definitely going to go through all of that. I just don't want to get you guys confused at the beginning, you know. But
cool.
Don't worry, yeah, I'm going to get there soon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's take a look here. So now I'm back to ZBrush. I'm going to save the scene here as well. Now that it's scaled, make sure I save all this as a project, as I mentioned yesterday. So I'm going to just do like, I'm going to keep naming the same thing unless something drastic happens here. I can actually switch here since I did like a scale. I'm going to just do a scaled 1. So I know that already went through that step. So a small file, right? Not saving history, so it's over in there. So from this point on, she's good to go. I can keep like sculpting, doing all that stuff. Let's do a test here. Let's go to the draw and see if the camera is working for all of them. Yeah, apparently it's working for all of them, all the angles, so that's good. So since we're talking about the camera here, let's go back and talk a little bit about the importance of the camera when you're doing likeness. In that article I posted yesterday, where I pointed you guys to, which is this one here, the Darren, right? He talks about it, so you guys can check it out. But for example, like camera, well, let's see, camera lenses, lenses comparison, like comparison like portrait, something like that, some random. So if you do like an image in here, you're normally going to find this type of reference in here that's very cool, you know. For example, this one here, let's see if we can find a better resolution. Yeah, this one is good. So check this out. So this is just like a demonstration of how the camera lens can influence and affect like the model, right? Obviously, there's something else like with exposure in here that's different and all that stuff. But it's like how much you can distort a face, right, by using different camera lenses. It's not a rule. You can be very creative with the lenses you're going to use for your portraits. But the average, what people normally do, for photographers normally do, and that's what I use in my kit as well when I'm photographing like portraits, is that if I'm photographing, let's say like from the waist and up, I would use like 50 millimeters lens. If it's full body, I would use like a 35. So I can actually, you know, put the whole body in there. If it's a portrait, which is basically like shoulders and face, I would use like an 85, which is not here. So it's basically something between this one and this one. It would be a 85. 100 is a great lens for portraits too. Like I would say like between 85 and 135, they're great lenses for portrait. If it's like shoulders up to the head. If it's a close up, like really close to the head, then you can go higher. You can go like starting with 100, 135, even 200, if it's just a face close up. And then collections of pictures taken like at the red carpet. And I have to remember which one is that. Probably you guys already seen that. And then, for example, if it's a picture taking that, you have to take into account the context, right? If it's a paparazzi and the guy's kind of like behind a kind of protective line, so they cannot go in the carpet, right? They have to stay outside of that. They're probably using like a longer lens, like a, not a longer, but like a zoom lens, right? So they're probably going to be using like, I don't know, like it can be something very high, like a 350 millimeters, or they can be using like a lens like the one I have, like a 70 to 200. So basically like from here all the way to here. So you can get closer if you want to, and it still keeps that lens is very good because it keeps like the sharpness and everything. And so it's probably a lens like this, you know, it's like something that can be not very intrusive, right? Like they can be outside of that scope, outside of the red carpet, but still capture like very close pictures, right? So you're gonna find like a range kind of like this, you know, it's like if it's like really a close up to the face at the red carpet, probably those guys are using something that's like very big like this, you know, it's like a 300 millimeters like that. And then if it's like a full body, probably like something that, you know, from a certain distance, probably like a 70 millimeter or something like that. So it's always like about trying to decipher what's going on, you know. It's very common in movies nowadays that we get the lenses, for example, like if a shot is filmed with a certain lens. So when you get that shot back to, you know, to ILM or to any studio, normally it comes with a description, you know, it's like, oh, this was filmed with a lens this, you know, so we can actually match. And then it's easier for us to work with the digital elements and just mix with the actual footage. But then if you're looking for something that's random from the internet, there is no way to know what it is. And then it becomes just a guess game, you know. Clues that you can have, for example, is that if you're using like a very wide angle like this, which is like a very small number in here, let's say like a 15 to 30, right? Something like, or 35. For a close-up like that, the face is going to be very distorted. The clues you can start to see is basically like the nose is going to look larger than it is. So you're going to see a larger nose. Depending on the angle, for example, the forehead is going to look exaggerated, or if she's looking slightly up, the chin is going to get exaggerated. The ear is going to basically like hide behind the mask. So like the mask that I call is basically all the way here to the zygomatic. So the ear is going to be basically gone in there. And then as soon as you start getting a little bit flatter with the angle, the ear is going to start showing up more and more. The nose is going to start shrinking. And then from this nose, you get to that nose, right? Much smaller. So yeah, little clues about like how to decipher what's going on with the model, you know. It's definitely like a very distorted face right here. Sometimes you can get the impression that, oh, this person looks very skinny, right? It's a very skinny person because it's this vertical line. But then if you start looking for more pictures, if you can find more pictures of the same person in different situations, it's almost like it's always a different piece of the puzzle that you start solving, you know. Likeness, I always take like this. It's virtually impossible to nail like from the get-go unless you're using like a blueprints or a scan or something like that. If you've never seen that face before, it's basically like what the guys specialized in caricatures do, you know. They start studying that. They do a bunch of different caricatures first just to understand what the face is, what's doing. And then once they're confident with those forms kind of stored in their brain, okay, I know what's going on. The parts of the puzzle, the pieces of the puzzle are all in their heads. Then they can go ahead and start actually deciphering that, right? So what I did today, actually finding those extra pictures of this lady, it's basically this, you know, it's like I'm happy that I found another piece of the puzzle because definitely going to need that later on. Even if I start like deviating from this lady and creating something more, you know, fantastic at some point, you know, it's like more like a fiction character. I still want to have access to the more pictures I can find of her, the best, because I can start realizing how deep those folds actually are, how you know, it's like how meaty this whole area is, how flat it looks on the side. I can start seeing those imaginary planes, right? Because yesterday, remember, was just winging it without looking too close to the planes of the face. And this is very important because if you see this face from a distance, you want to make sure that it works from all distances and from all angles. It has to look believable. So yeah, it's very important to find those pieces of the puzzle. Sometimes it takes a while, and then you find this picture, you know, that, for example, the actor you're looking for, and you have no idea how the base of the nose looks like. And then all of a sudden you find one that the guy is looking up, right? And then it was like, oh man, that's it. You know, it's like, that's another piece. So it's likeness is basically collecting. You have to collect references. You know, there's no way out. And again, if you want to go the easy way, just like to, you know, use blueprints and whatever you want to use, like create like some a model by using like a, you know, iPhone collection of pictures and asking the software to actually create something for you. But I think that's a big opportunity you're missing from like learning what the form is actually doing, you know, depending on the person you're looking at. And it's funny because we all have different perceptions. If I give this model to 100 people, good modelers, you know, they all going to come up with a different version of this lady. A supervisor I had, like my first supervisor at ILM, we are discussing this transformer I was supposed to model it. And the concept was kind of like, it was very loose. and I asked about a certain form, and he was saying that was like concave, and I was saying like, no, that's convex, you know. So it was that discussion about like how a person like him, like all the experience, he totally believed that, and I believed something else because I could not see it, you know. I ended up obviously doing what he was saying, but because I don't want to lose my job from the get-go, right? But but I still believe it was convex. But yeah, so sometimes you're gonna see things, and there's a lot of tricky things when you look at the face like this, because there are, for example, with spots, there are certain areas that are gonna have a different coloration. You know, it's like certain people have like this area around the eyes a little bit more like pale or bluish, you know, depending of the complexion. And then there are certain spots, for example, like those liver spots on the sides. Sometimes you can read them as being kind of like depressions in the surface, when in fact they are just like darker spots, you know. And so the best way to understand the form, if you want to go like for reference without using the scan themselves, is to actually research like 3D scans online. There is that, I think it's like 1024, is it? Let's see. I'm not affiliated either, but I think it's like 1024 scans, something like that. And then, so for example, you go to this website, so they have the 3D scan store, and then you're gonna have access to, oh, they changed this stuff a lot. Okay, 3D scans, they're fancy now selling all this stuff. So yeah, so here you're gonna have access to all those models, which I never bought one, but I would actually, because it would be a cool reference, you know, just because I get too precious about trying to come up with stuff without being tempted to use anything, you know. But I think as a visual reference, I have a collection of those scans themselves without the color or anything. So let's see, these ones have color, but you see like this type of referencing here, those are excellent without the color, because you can actually see what the face is doing, you know, and basically like in a controlled manner, right? So take a look in there, and there's another one that I want to point you guys. I think, I don't know if I have the link in there. I should actually add this link. I just don't want to add anything that's commercial, you know, because it's kind of, I don't have affiliation. I'm not going to get any money from it. But yeah, this website is cool for reference, like with scans. But then there's this guy.
Yeah, Chris.
Yes.
Sorry, I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
For a portfolio, for like, let's say you're applying to ILM or something like that, how much should scans feature in your portfolio, if anything? And do you find that, like, how does that affect your perception of a portfolio if they use scan work?
Oh man, it's like, because I'm not part of the process of decision at ILM. It's just like the higher ups are the guys deciding everything. I cannot go for a specific project. I would say they're going to go for the person who actually has the knowledge about how to treat a scan, you know, so how to clean it up, how to prepare it for, you know, for projection, whatever it is. That's going to be a very specific skill. But I would say, like, if you're looking for someone who is more like a generalist, someone who, you know, going to be able to work in different things instead of like a very specific thing, I believe they're going to go for someone who is showing like some artistic skills, you know, someone who actually knows, you know, about the form, you know, it's like they can see the anatomy skills and stuff like that. Probably like it would be better to have like some anatomy studies can be like loose ones all the way to a finished product or something, you know. But I'm kind of talking out of my ass right now, because
that's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, that's how I feel I would approach, you know, because that's kind of like the way they judge me, like based on the stuff I had in my portfolio, which was basically like just my own personal work, you know.
Thank you.
No problem. So, and then another good reference is this one here. I already pointed in a couple of the previous classes as well. If you go to Instagram, and you go to, oh, it's going to ask me to, oh shit. Let's see. But I got security code here. Sorry guys, I'm gonna have flash this one. All right, and then let's see if I go to this guy, not now, Joe, this guy here, Joe's Lockbower, whatever how you call it or how you pronounce it. So this guy here, he collects like basically like death masks and life masks, like life casts. So he has like a bunch of different actors, you know, it's like Kirk Douglas, who just like died a couple of, you know, weeks ago. So he has like a cast of him when he was young. And then you're gonna find like all kinds of actors like Eddie Murphy, all those guys. And the cool thing about scans that I think it's a very great reference is for example, like for the, if I try to zoom in here, for the secondary forms, you know, because when you sculpt something, I was mentioning yesterday, for example, we go from the primary forms sometimes straight to the tertiary forms, but without taking into account, you know, it's like the beautiful bigger forms that you have in between them, right? So sometimes you're going to see like marks of acne, you know, it's like some bigger marks. You're going to see some scars. You're going to see some of those kind of like undulations almost in the surface, you know. And all this stuff contributes for the complexity of the face, you know. So it's very important to add them to your models. So feel free to just go there. This one, for example, is Salma Hayek, right? Like, look how different she looks as a scan here, right? So very, very interesting. And then, you know, it's like also like the makeup covers a lot of stuff. That's the tricky part. If you're sculpting a woman, there's a lot of makeup applied, and the makeup is designed to cover, of course, like the spots and all that stuff. And also, you know, it's like it's going to cover up a lot of the, you know, imperfections in the skin. You're not going to see pimples or anything, right? It's designed to do that. And then on top of that, you have the makeup that's going to make the eyes look bigger, right? It's going to look, things going to look bigger. So it's very interesting to compare between like someone in full makeup and under a perfect lighting situation, right? Like from a professional photographer. And then on top of that, sometimes like lots of Photoshop. If you're getting a picture from a magazine, right? The photo shoot is like totally Photoshopped. And then you have access to something like this, which is much more raw. Now, another thing about the likeness that's important if you're referring to life masks like this, which is different from what I was showing at the 1024, is that I would trust 1024 better than a life mask. And the reason is because in order to generate this, they normally add a lot of plaster, right? There is a lot of heavy materials being deposited on top of the face. And the skin is very flexible, right? So over time, if you're putting a lot of those, you know, layers and layers of plaster, things gonna weigh on the face and you're gonna start deflating everything. So there's a pressure that's gonna be against the skin. So you're normally gonna see more of the bone structure. Sometimes you're gonna see the face deflating a little bit more, right? Like, so it's not like a perfect one-to-one. It normally deforms the face slightly just because of this pressure that's being exercised in there. Now, if you're capturing with a 3D scan, in a system like Lightstage, which is basically like a dome of lights, and there's no contact. It's just a person sitting in there or standing. And then it's just like a scan produced from non-contact process. You can trust that that's actually a really, really good, precise likeness, right? So if you're working in a studio professional, you're probably going to get, if they have the option, to give you like a little bit of both. You can get the Lightstage for nailing the likeness and the proportions and everything. And you might get like a life cast scanned version, a scanned version of the life cast, where you can actually extract like the super nice details from the skin that the life cast captures. You know, you can get some very clean forms, sometimes much better than the Lightstage can, but you cannot trust like the primary forms that much because of, you know, this deflation that sometimes happens, you know. So that's another can of worms in there. So yeah, I wanted to talk about this, about the portrait stuff first. And then we're going to do something else here. We're going to just close this parenthesis and let's go back to Maya. And very quickly here, I'm going to just put together a little lighting setup. We can test like do our very first render and then go back to ZBrush and do some sculpting talking about some of those forms. So let's try to add everything today. Let's see how far we can get. So in Arnold, now that you have your little scene set up, you already scaled everything, you already saved your scene. Let's put like our first light in here. So we're gonna go to Arnold, I'm gonna go to lights, and I can just say, let's create an area light. I'm gonna move it up like that. You see by default it's actually pointing, facing towards Z, right, the depth. So I'm just gonna bring it forward like that. You're gonna scale it up. So you can press like R for scaling, right? W to rotate, and then actually W to move, E to rotate, and then R to scale. Then I'm gonna just scale. And let's pretend like if you're in an actual studio, normally what an area light is, it's normally used to simulate a window, right? So sometimes people use very large area lights to simulate like the light coming from a window. It's a way to do like a very soft lighting instead of like something harsh. So you can choose what you want to do. If you want to simulate something that's more like a sunlight, you're going to use a very small area light. And if it's something more like a window light, you can do like a bigger one. So we're going to do something slightly bigger than her face, probably like twice her face or something, so we can get some soft shadows. But then we're going to play with that as I show you guys how this works. So I'm going to move up. And then if you look at those paintings from the past, like during the Baroque period, you probably are familiar with Rembrandt. It's an amazing painter. And his drawings and engraved still are pretty cool engravings. Basically like what the Rembrandt light is when you get a single light which basically illuminates one side of the face and produces a little triangle under the eye in the opposite side. So basically like you're gonna get this nice little light that's a 45 degree. If you wanna be very picky about it, you can actually translate you know, this values right here. You see like I have a 45 in here already, right? And you can do like a rotate like a minus, let's say 45. So you can do like a perfect 45 in there. And then you're just gonna go and try to find what's the best spot in here to create that triangle, which we're gonna do as we render it. So with one single light in there, now I can do a first little render. Yesterday we set up like everything that we needed. So this is gonna render at 900 by 900 right now. So we're just gonna open the Arnold render view and bring it up around here. And you're gonna notice that the camera is pretty far right now. We don't have like an actual camera, we're using just the perspective. That's the default. So we're just gonna click render and see if we get anything. You're probably not gonna see a lot here, if anything. Yeah, so you see like it's completely black, right? So the first little tweak we're gonna do here is this. So this light here, if I go to the properties, which is around here, you're gonna see all the settings for the light. If you are not seeing this, you can press Control A. It's gonna open the properties for you, the attributes. So let's just move this out of the way for now. I hate to have like different resolutions for my monitors because it kind of does this jerky thing in there. So the first thing you're gonna do, we're gonna just turn off a couple of things here. We're gonna turn off this normalize. And then you're gonna crank the samples just one more. So instead of one, I'm gonna use two. And the normalize, what it does is basically like it's a creative way of doing it, which is if you have a certain value here established, like for intensity or exposure, and that's set, it doesn't matter how big you go with this light, it never changes the amount of intensity. So basically like you have a lot of control if you're using normalize. So that means like you get the same amount of light hitting the face. It's just how soft or harsh the shadows are gonna get. So it's very easy to control. Sometimes I use that, but I prefer to use kind of like a, you know, it's like be dependent on the size only. So I control in here, but it's up to you guys. I mean, like this way, if I turn it off, you're gonna see I'm gonna get the results straight away here. You should see something. So you see like it's very faint, but we can see a render already, right? But you can do, like I said before, you know, it's like you can choose not to do that way. You can just do like use the normalize, so you can actually control just intensity. And just you can go here under exposure and let's crank this to, let's say 8. Let's see what happens. If it's too little, we can keep cranking this. Let's try with 20. Oops, not 320, 20. 20 is too much, so we're gonna have to find a sweet spot like, let's see, 12, 14, something like that. So at 14, see between, it has to be like 13 probably. It's a little bit strong, so 13. So now I have that, right? So let's see what happens here if I play with the scale of the light. So if I do this. See, like the shadows got much harsher, right? But the intensity is the same. So I go higher, so I get like softer, right? Softer shadows, but then the intensity remains the same. So yeah, it's up to you guys. This one would be like easier to control if you're trying like going for a creative way of doing it, because you can control exactly how you want your shadows to look like. And the other one is a little bit more of a chase. I kind of got used to using the other one because I was just controlling the size and then correcting for that. But this might be a better option, you know. It's like it's just up to you guys if you want to use one or the other. So that's like the first light we are adding here. So it's just a single light. We can get the little scene in there going. Let's just gonna stop this because this is IPR, so it keeps rendering anything that I change in there. So I'm gonna just stop it for now. And then let's click 1:1, so it goes back to the actual proportion in relation to the 900. So it's a very tiny head right now. So let's correct that. Let's do something here. First thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the view, and I'm gonna do a couple of things here. Under camera settings, I'm gonna just dock this one. In Maya, if you never used it, you normally click this little top in here, the bar, and it's gonna dock it. So we docked in here. So I'm gonna do like a resolution gate, right? So if I click resolution gate, now if I shrink this, this is basically like this square is my render in here. It's gonna happen right there. So, and then gate mask, I can turn it off if I want, and I only see this little green line in there. But I can actually, you know, there's a safe action. This is not necessary, but the gate mask is a good one to just keep because I'm sure that that's the area that I'm gonna be rendering, right? So I can, at this point here, I can just like zoom in to make sure that my head, it's within that square right there, right? So it's a big right there. But there's a lot of distortion because by default, Maya uses 35mm lens. So if you go to view and you click select camera, you're gonna notice a couple of things here. So if this doesn't open, you can press Ctrl-A to go to your attributes. And now you can play with this. So like I said before, 85 would be good for like shoulders and head, and 100 or over would be for the face. So I'm gonna probably like use 100 in here for her face alone. And now it gives me a nice little flatter, right? Or let's say like a 90. You don't need to be like a perfect number. You can use like a zoom lens. So at 90, I think it gives me a nice little balance, you know. And then obviously if you go from a distance, right, it's gonna get flatter and flatter. And if you go closer and closer, you can start opening it up a little bit more, but and getting more distorted. So around here, I'm kind of happy with that. So what I'm gonna do now, let's just set up like my first keyframe in here. So let's say I want to do overnight a bunch of renders, and I want to make sure that you know, when I wake up in the morning, I have all those renders stored in my hard drive perfectly. So I can do this. Look, so I have my face in there in the scale that I want to do the renders. I'm gonna just go to View, select Camera, and then you can press S like Sam, right? And then you're gonna see like you create this little red line, and then he created those lines right here as well, right? If it doesn't work for you for whatever reason, you can always select all those channels. Just click and drag like that, right click, and then say key selected, and then he selects and creates a key for you. So this is the first frame. Then I can go to a frame. You see like my timeline is a little bit big in here. I can actually reduce this to the number of frames I'm gonna use. Let's do like 15 and 15. So now I have access to like just 15 frames. It's easier to select. So I'm gonna click the second one, and this one I'm gonna do like a front one, maybe a little bit more close up, like that, maybe a little bit from the top. And then I'm gonna press S again. The third one's gonna be a profile shot, maybe from here, or maybe a 3/4, like that, S, and then a profile. A couple of things you can do, like you can be more creative with the angles as well, so it's not too boring. To simulate, like if you're like handhelding a camera and take a picture of someone, you can go to View, Camera again, and then you have camera tools in here. You can dock this one as well, or undock. And then you can just use like, for example, like a roll. And then with the roll, you can do this kind of stuff, you know, it's like roll the camera in different unusual angles like that. And you can get like something like a nice little shot, like looking up like that. And then S again. So now I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames, right? So how do we render this? If you want to do something for, you know, like I said, like we leave it rendering it in, and wake up in the morning, get this stuff done. So we basically go to your render settings. And then remember I had 10 frames set. I can just switch to 5 in here because that's all I'm going to need. Only 5 frames that I have set. And then once that's in place, make sure that you have a naming here that's going to be, all your files going to be named that way, right? Like the first prefix and then the number of the frame and then the extension. So I have that one set this way. And now the last thing missing is you're going to switch from modeling to rendering. And you're going to click render. And this is kind of new. It's like for Maya 2018, I think they implemented. So render sequence, you can click in the option box. And then here you have a bunch of options. And one of them says add render to render view. So if you click this one, all those little renders you're going to be doing, you're going to be accumulating into the render view, not Arnold render view. It's going to basically use Maya's render view, and it's going to accumulate everything in there. But if you don't click this one, no problem. It's just going to render straight to the hard drive like you're planning anyway. It's going to go straight to that folder that you defined when you define your project. It's going to go to the images folder and then with those prefixes. So so that's how we set up like the little scene to render all those angles at first. Like obviously play, do whatever you want with the angles you want to do and whatever you need to do. And then the last thing we're going to do just to set up our little scene is to play with one HDRI map. So I have my key light in there. Let's do a render now with the face like full on, you know, in scale in there. So that's basically what we have right now. I can actually start looking at the forms and comparing to my model. Obviously, ideally, if you're really trying to nail likeness, you try to simulate what the lighting is doing in the reference, right? So for example, if I have the lighting coming from that side, right, kind of like back, from the back, it's almost like she has this big shadow in here. She's either against like a wall, for example, right? Or she's inside and then there's a big light coming from a big door or something like that. But she's definitely getting hit by the sun straight away right here. So you can try to simulate that with using some different lighting, you know, and adding some like maybe some plane on the side to just like block this whole area, you know. But at this point, I'm still being very creative with it, you know. I'm going to be playing with those lights as I go. So let's do our first HDRI rendering here. And the way it works is like this. Same way you created, let's switch back to from rendering, you're gonna go back to modeling. And then from Arnold here, you're just gonna go to the same spot like lights. You created one using area light before. So you're gonna just click sky dome light this time. I'm gonna click that one. And now you're gonna get this nice little dome around the whole thing, right? I can mess around here. Sometimes what I do, because I already have my perspective camera in here, if I don't want to mess up with this camera, I want to leave it the way it is, I can just go to Panels, Perspective, and then click New. And then now I have a perspective camera number 2 in here. If I click Outliner in here, you're going to see it's perspective 1. I can name anything else. So for example, like I just, yeah, something like that. So this is just for adjustments. So that's my camera. So anything I do in here is just, for example, if I want to have access to like the eyeball later on, stuff like that, I can do all the manipulation using this camera and just leave this one here. Oops, not this one. This one here alone. So it always renders from that. That's cool because if you're rendering stuff with IPR, so basically like it keeps rendering as you change things, instead of like having to go and find different objects in here, like a pupil or iris, whatever, you just keep working in this perspective, the new one, and then the render is going to be adapting constantly on the side. So it's a win-win in there. So let's look at our sky dome. So I have my sky dome in there, and look at the properties in here, and it's very similar to the properties of the area light itself, but has a couple of different things in here. So I still have my normalize, right? Which in this case here I can totally turn it off. You have the samples. I'm gonna also do 2 in here. You can actually go higher, but increases the render times. You just get like more less like noiseless that way. But it is normally pretty good. So I'm gonna plug my first HDRI map now. So under the properties again, like click the DOM, Control A if you don't have access to it, and then this should pop in here. And then I can just go to color, and where color is, we just go to click that little checker, and then you're gonna get access to this little render node menu. I'm gonna click File, and then here we're gonna do a few things. So the first thing, I'm gonna go all the way down here under Arnold, and depending on, remember I mentioned yesterday, if your machine doesn't have a lot of RAM, maybe it's better to keep this one, the TX textures being auto-created. You can create them manually as well if you go to your Arnold and then utilities and then update TX files or TX manager, you can do that. Or if you want Maya to always auto-generate, whatever you plug in here is going to create the TX texture automatically. Then you keep that one. In my case, I'm going to turn it off because I don't want it. And then the second thing, I'm going to remove any filtering I have. I don't need that. And you can keep it if you want, you know, like I just got used to removing for everything because if it's textures, you know, especially displacement maps, it has to be on. Otherwise, you might get some seams, you know. So, and then here is the image file. So I'm going to click this little folder and we're going to source it. I'm going to go in my folder here. I have an HDRI collection, which I have a lot of those images collected from HDRI Haven, right? So I have like outdoors and indoors stuff. So let's look for one cool one here. Let's see which one. Let's go by date. I think there's a good one that's by date in here. So this guy here, this is a cool one. I like this one. Or maybe this cool, the old bus depot, the one I mentioned before. So you see, like I save with the name 4K because I know those are 4K maps I'm downloading from there. So I'm gonna click open. Now I have my map in there, right? And you're gonna, yes.
I'm just wondering, how do you choose your HDRIs? Like on what base, what criteria?
Oh, it's like taste. You know, it's like if I'm looking for something like outdoors, I try to find stuff. You normally look at the samples, you know, it's like you have those little spheres in there. And then you see, for example, like, oh, I'm looking for some light that's a little bit more harsh, right? Like a harsher light. For example, like, let's go back here to, let's see. So like I was looking for very different lighting setups for this test that I did in here, right? So for this one, for example, I had the outdoors light, this one, and I was looking for one with harsher shadows because I was looking for this sunlight kind of thing. So I just looked for like outdoors light and tried to look at the samples, like the little spheres in the bottom. And I found the ones that had like sharper shadows and kind of like a little bit more like from the top down. And then for the other ones, this one's kind of similar, but the other ones I tried to go for. So this one, for example, is from a forest, I think. It's very diffuse light. But then, and yeah, like I normally like depending on what you're trying to accomplish. In this case here, I was trying to judge what would look better for this guy. That's why I was trying like outdoors and indoors. But I tell you that this one here, one of my students last month, he was using this one. And he showed me one of his render tests. It looks super cool. And I was like, man, what's this one? And then he shared, you know, I was like, that was basically the one he was using. And then I tried it, and it's pretty cool because those giant windows are around here. They give very nice reflections in the eyes. And because you have this whole area here that has no windows, you can actually get, or this area here that's huge without any windows, you can get a nice little shadow in one side of the face and then a lot of light in the other side. So it's normally a matter of like how you want to contrast things, you know. If you're looking for nice reflections, definitely like bigger windows and then kind of isolated from the rest. So you get a lot of shadow, but then you get those very, you know, large windows. Those normally help a lot. So the other thing you're going to look in here is, for example, this, right? Remember when we set up our rules yesterday, when we set up the color, you can refer back if you don't remember. basically, like I set up, like anything that was HDR, you would set up like a utility linear sRGB. You're going to see a difference here. This is what I was doing last month, for example. It was different from this. So you see the colors in there. Let's see if you're going to be able to see the difference. Let's get something like this. And then if I switch to what I was using, which was the raw version, so utility raw, look what's going to happen. 1, 2, 3. You got more saturated. See the redness in here? So I'm going to go back. Linear RSGB, look at the redness. More natural, right? So that's the one we should be using. So correcting that problem from last month. And then from this point on, now it's a matter of like playing with a few other things. So we're going to click this again. I'm going to be increasing the resolution in here to 496 to match the resolution I use for the map, right? I downloaded, so 496. And then there are a couple of things that here are very creative as well. You can actually reduce this amount here, and then basically like the color is going to go away during the render. So let's do a little render here first. Let's see how this renders straight out of the box with that lighting. So sometimes what happens is that if you don't refresh the scene, sometimes it gets broken somehow. So this one looks like it got a little broken. So let's try this. Let's see if it's gonna work. So if something got like the link got missed because of or lost because you're actually playing and introducing new objects to the scene when this whole thing was already loaded in memory, sometimes Arnold gets confused. And I tell you that in the Linux machine we work at ILM, it basically like he doesn't do this. I think the Windows version has a little bit more of a problem updating stuff, but I might be wrong, but I had this impression. So if you have this type of problem, you're kind of like the model doesn't look like you think he should look. This might be from the actual HDRI, but just make sure you can just go to render and then update full scene. Let's do that one. Let's see if it's going to change. Oh, actually, it's updating the scene based on the new camera. So yeah, it turns out that that was correct. It's basically like probably like it's a couple of other things to consider in there. So let's do update from this angle. So let's see the intensity of the light, for example, if it's too intense. And I can start as well like by removing the other light and just like start playing and see what happens. So let's try this. And then let me go to my other adjustment one. I'm gonna turn this one off for now. So illuminate by default, so I'm gonna turn it off. Let's see if it's gonna make anything different here. Okay, so that's more HDRI now and no other lights. So one thing you can start doing, you can just cancel this. You can rotate this. So you can go from a perspective like this. See the light is hitting her face straight away like that. So we can actually move this around. And in this case here, shadow in one side, a lot of light on the other side, and a bounce from that side. So let's see what that one does when it comes to this lady here. Yeah, now I start getting a little bit more dramatic light, right? But obviously, because the light is so low, you're not getting that nice like up, down lighting. You know, it's like you're not going to get a lot of shadow under the eyebrows, for example. So it's a matter of like finding an HDRI that works for you. As a suggestion, I mean, this one is really good to bring the realism in the eyes. But if you want to switch to something that's more top down, you can go and replace this one with something like, let's see, Glass Passage, I believe is the one I used a lot. So there's one here's Glass Passage, this one. And looks like this, like in JPEG, right? So it's kind of like a diffuse light. And it's kind of bluish as well. So, but the bluish we can actually correct. I can show you how. So I'm gonna switch to this one. And then let's see, like from the get-go, if you just press play here, let's see what it does. Much more blue, right? But it has this nice like a top to bottom lighting, and then much more diffuse as well. Now, if you want to play with this, I mean, there is a node, a very, very specific node in Arnold that allows you to color correct the whole thing. Or if you want to do something very dirty and cheap, you can actually color correct this just by turning things more yellow. If it's like blue like that, you can increase like the amount of yellow to actually bring some warmth to it. So the way I normally do, I mean, either if I'm being serious, I'm gonna plug like a node to color correct. But if not, I can just go here, and then under the map, you keep going here. Under color balance, you have this color gain and color offset. You can do, for example, like here, you can just like select, like, let's say a yellow or orange yellow, something like that. If I play it now, let's see what's gonna do. So the color starts shifting a little bit more towards, you know, a warm tone. So sometimes you find like a map that it looks great, but it's just the tone looks so weird. You can, like I said, like do the cheap version that's based like playing with those slides. You can even use offsets, you know, you put like a little bit more yellow in the offset in here. So it's everything's gonna be a little bit more washed out towards yellow. See, kind of like a hazy, right? Or you can actually do like the correct way, which is basically using a node. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's just reset what I had before I make a mess here. The resolution here is a mess. So I'm gonna click the dome, and I'm gonna just reset this to black, and then this one to absolute white. Actually, 1 here. So 1, and so basically like this is reset to default. So instead of using that, I can do this, look, just select the dome itself, and then you can just say graph, and then graph materials and selected object. Did it show up? Oh, interesting, it's not showing that. Let's see under lights if it's here. So we have the sky dome right there. And then I have my coloring here. Let's see if I can just input and output. So I have this guy here. Okay, so it's there. So I have the glass passage in there. So what I did, I basically like went to lights, sky dome, and I just clicked the graph input and output. So it basically opened the whole shader network for me. And then from this point on here, I can just like remove and plug right in between. So let's go to utilities. And I have this AI color correction here that I just did created. So just put it in here with the mouse click and just drag. And then I have like the, let's see, UV out color to color right here. So what I can do, I can just remove this, but like out color goes to the input right there, right? And then the out color of this one goes to this guy right here. So now I have like a color correction node in between everything. So let's see how that works out. So let's get rid of this. Let's select the globe, again, the dome. And then now if I expand this back to the, instead of going straight to the color, to the texture itself, it goes to the color node, color correction node. So we should have the blue version here first, right? The original one. But then here you can play, for example, with the color, the hue shift, right? So if I bring it down here, let's see what happens. So more towards green. So everything in the map's gonna go towards green. You can saturate things more, you can desaturate things more. If you like the lighting, for example, but you see like this one got almost like clay. But if you look at the map itself, it's gonna be completely distorted, right? Well, it's just like an option you can use, you know. You can use this, this node for anything, like for correcting the color of anything actually. So just like little demonstration in there. So now that we have our scene here, I mean, like I'm gonna say that whatever model we have, you sculpted like a sketch or whatever it is, or an old model, give it a try. You know, it's like a plugin in there. Find like in HDRI Haven your favorite stuff. Like it's a matter of like really testing a bunch of them and seeing the ones you like the best. I probably tested like 50 or 60, and I picked like 9. And those are the ones I kind of use for stuff. I can open a scene tomorrow and then show you guys what my favorites are. But for now, it's just like, I would say just explore HDRI Haven and get some of them. So a couple of other things in here when it comes to the dome light. So if you click on it and you go to your attributes, remember I show like this little slides in here. So this basically like you can be creative with the way that you're rendering stuff. This is normally what you would expect to render because it's the texture is fully visible. But let's say if you want to create like make it darker or completely black, the background and keep the lighting you have in the model, you can bring this camera slide all the way down like that. Let's see what's going to happen. So it goes black. If I increase just a little bit of it, let's see how much I can increase here to review a little bit of the background. Yeah, it's starting to show in there. So for the renders I did for Stan Winston, let's see if I can find it here. I actually use a combination of those things. I'm just going to show you one. So for example, let's see if I pick anything here. Anything that's not too old. Let's see, this guy. Yeah, something like this. Right, so if I show this guy here. So you see like the background is very, very dark. So the intention here was to create something that looked like someone took a picture with a flashlight. So I kind of like, I'm gonna show you guys in one of those next classes, you know, the flashlight's basically like it's a small round area light that I'm using, which is basically attached to the camera. It's actually has a constraint to the camera. So no matter where the camera is, it's gonna follow the camera and it's gonna give this nice render that looks like a flashlight like that. You're gonna get like some harsh lines behind stuff, right? Because it's right there. But then normally when you do this with an actual camera, like a DSLR, basically like what's gonna happen is that the background's gonna be underexposed. So it's gonna expose the front, right? Like the foreground elements, and it's gonna expose the background. So to create that, what I did was exactly this, you know, it's like I used the camera and then I just like underexposed. And by the way, the background for that shot is exactly the same one I'm using here. So you see like, this is the glass passage right there. So I'm using just as a bounce, but most of the light comes from this single flashlight. So that's basically the same deal in here. And I was just using the camera in here more creatively. So back to 1. So with that, I mean, like it's a good start for you guys to, you know, to test your models and to orbit around and do renders from different angles and see how the forms are. And you can actually judge things better this way, you know. Obviously, if you want to go for something more neutral, then I would encourage you guys to get a book about like photography book that you can actually set up like a little 3-point light setup, like a studio lighting. One, for example, like a 45 degrees, like the one I was doing before. And then and another one, like it would be like a backlight, maybe to reveal like the silhouette of the head. If your model has hair, sometimes you can use like a hair light, just to reveal more of that as well. Yeah, this is just like a starting point for you guys. And so we're gonna open for questions and I'm gonna jump right into ZBrush as well, so we can do some sculpting. But you guys are free to ask. I know we're already like exchanging some questions, so I'm kind of like just going with the flow.
Hey.
Yes.
So I have a website for you. So
yeah.
I've been using it as a reference.
Let's take a look.
Okay, so the name is super weird.
Oh,
So don't get freaked out, but it's freaking awesome. It's called
Pornhub.com.
It's called Triple Gangers, and it's a 3D scanning place. And I use it, Triple Gangers, yeah.
Like that?
I think just type 3D scans because I don't know where .com. Oh, there you go. Okay. So this one is awesome because you can actually search by gender and age and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And also what's really good about it is if you click on them,
mm-hmm.
So click on any of them, and then you get a bunch of expressions when they load.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
If you press on the plus, press on the little like magnet.
Yeah. Magnifier, yeah.
And you get like the color flat, and you get the sculpt as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You get access. We get the access to the albedo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool.
I use that a lot.
Oh man, that's a really cool site.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice, dude. Let's put this one as one of the links in there. I mean, that's the thing, you know, it's like when I put in there, if it's commercial, I kind of rather not to, but I don't know. It looks like a pretty cool. Let's share in our group, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I use it all the time for sculpting and
Very,
coloring.
very cool. And for facial expressions, right? Like you can get a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
Nice, dude. Thanks.
I
Thanks
never
for sharing.
bought any 3D scans from them, but I should one day. Cause
Yeah, same with me with those 1024. You know, it's like I have a folder with a lot of those references, but I never bought one. But I like to see like the model in grayscales, gray shade, so I can actually see the forms. You know, very, very.
oh
cool.
yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
also you can really do like a search by height and like
Ah,
it's
nice.
it's pretty crazy.
Customizable, yeah. Nice, man. Thanks.
But the name is great.
Triple gangers, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, like double gangers and triple gangers. Nice. Okay, so let's go back to our ZBrush now. And now we have our model already scaled. So let's explore a little bit of the forms now and talk a little bit more seriously about them. You know, it's like I said before, this one is giving me a lot of clues that I didn't have before, other than the facial expression. Obviously, that's not going to be the same. But in terms of the structure of the face itself, so let's do side by side and let's compare things and see what we can read from that and anything we can incorporate to this other model here. So we're going to start by looking at this folding here. It looks very, very deep. And also there is an additional form that I can see right there. There's a break in there. A bunch of other forms. I mean, like it gets much more complex as you go. But let's say my camera is the view is a little bit flat in here. Let's go to 50. Let's keep a 50 around here. And then probably like, you see like this whole area is a little bit more volumetric. Sometimes it's hard to judge without having an actual neck. So let's build a little neck in here for now. Just gonna select it, let's see with the symmetry. Just gonna select something here. Something like that. And then let's see how far it's going. Maybe reduce a little bit of that. So now let's do this. So click Control and then click outside. Just reverse it. And then let's just bring this down. And I can actually use this scale here to just like flatten the bottom of it. I'm gonna bring it down. So I'm gonna have a little neck in there now. And then the neck is actually pretty, it's like the resolution is like really bad right now. So what you can do, you can actually click the sculptures again and then just like smooth it out. Oh, too big, maybe a little bit more on that. I love the Sculptures Pro, man. It's like so cool to just like create stuff on the fly. If you need geometry, you know. Just gonna do that, and then let's see how the geometry looks like. There's a little problem in there. And then right there. So now let's just deselect, and now we can actually go a little bit smaller, just to add a little bit more in that band in there. Maybe in the connection between the two here. Something like that. So now we have enough geometry to do some work. And then start like pulling some stuff, you know. Let's just, I'm not gonna be too crazy about the neck just yet, but just do a little tweak here. Maybe bring this base of the cranium a little bit higher. And then it's gonna come back slightly. Probably gonna add a little bit more volume underneath. If I need to add volume in there, I'd rather use my trusty clay buildup with the low intensity 3. Let's build a little bit more of this form right there. Just add a little bit more. Blend this a little bit more as well. And just go all the way to the edge of the maxillary in there, the jawline. And then obviously this whole thing here now, as we go, you're gonna start building more and more form. You're gonna have this little webbing happening in there, depending on the person, right? Like it's gonna come from different places. In her case, it's probably coming right below here. Just gonna add this as a little reference in there for now. Actually, it's going the opposite. It's kind of like going out. Just gonna add those guys and just leave the way it is for now. So I have a little bit of the age going on. And then let's go switch back to my move. And let's go back here and just bring this closer to where we expect it to be. You know, it's like if you have, just gonna, you know, very quickly just block this so we have something to work with. Should be good enough for now. I'm gonna keep tweaking this forever. And then even like the backing here, I might need some more volume as well, you know, but I'm gonna have to check against reference and everything. Her forehead as well, probably gonna need some more volume around there. Again, gonna have to check against references and see how well we can get this. So let's take a look at the face itself and see what we can find here. For example, the cheeks themselves, I already mentioned that apparently she has much more like depth in there. So I'm gonna be switching to my little trusty carve tool. And I'm gonna be, one thing I can do at this point here, to tell you the truth, if I wanna do it, right? Like, I mean, like I don't need to, but one thing I do sometimes is like, I can duplicate this model. For example, like just click duplicate, right? I'm gonna hide this one. You can clip your X or symmetry on, and you can generate like very quickly under geometry a zero mesher in here. Let's say, let's put like maybe like a 10 in here. Let's see what we get just by doing that. Let's see if it's gonna be something too crappy or not. I tell you why I'm doing this in a bit. Let's see if it's gonna take too long. I swear this computer, man, for rendering is faster, but for some other stuff seems like a little bit slower than the previous one, which is weird. But you see, like topology-wise, it's not gonna be great, right? It's just like good enough. If you wanna have more control over the topology, what I recommend is using polygroups, right? So for example, like if you draw something like this around the eye, for example, like if you create a mask like that, you can just tell ZBrush, if you want to do something like this, obviously it's not time for that, but just out of curiosity. So if you have a mask, you can go to your polygroups and you can just say like group masked. So now I have that polygroup, right? And then when I Z-remesh this again, I can tell ZBrush to just use, let's see, detect keep groups, right? Like I think it's keep groups. So let's try with that one. Let's do it again. So you see it creates a little loop for you in there, right? You can do this for basically everything. So you can create like another mask and then create polygroup, another mask for the nose, create polygroup, do all those things. And then at the end, you can get like a fairly decent topology, you know, to work with. But just remember, this is still with the phase of like a concept, right? So we're not too concerned. What my intention with this was to actually be able to subdivide it. Now I have like, I can go back and forth in resolution, right? So I could go even like lower than this. So let's say, let's see if I have my Z-remesher, instead of 10, I'm gonna use like a 5 in here. Let's see if it's too low. Should go faster now. Something like that. So it's very, very low resolution. And then now I can actually see 10,000 polygons. So Control D, Control D, Control D. So like 3 subdivision levels. It's a funky little group in there. So only 3 subdivision levels. And now I can actually project this back to this model here, right? So I can actually just select it, keep the one visible in there, and then go to your project and then say like project all. And now basically like you have your model back, but now with the topology, right? So let's see, is that the one? No, that's the old one. This is the new one. So now the advantage is that I have all the forms plus a couple of subdivision levels to play with. So it's just like, you know, I probably would use more sculptures for longer, but this is just like an option I'm giving you guys. You know, it's like if you want to have some more flexibility, because it's easier to tweak forms in general when you have like less resolution than complicating things too much. So let's go back to what matters here, which is like the intention here is to be able to clean up those forms a little bit faster. So we're gonna go
Hey, Chris, I have another question.
Yeah.
So is at this point, do you do you actually start sculpting the expression as well?
Yes. I would say, like, obviously, if you work in production, you're definitely going to go for the neutral version, right, of the model. So you're going to have to sculpt the neutral at this point. But because I'm going for portrait, I'm not planning to animate or anything. I go straight to the facial expression, and the fact that I'm going straight to the facial expression kind of contradicts a little bit the whole notion of you have to go and sculpt like the primary forms to look perfect before you go to the next level, right? Because my philosophy is this, you know, it's like I want to do stuff for fun. I want to have fun sculpting it. And if my brain starts getting too technical too fast, I kind of lose interest to the whole thing. You know, it's like in our daily jobs, we use just like technical stuff constantly. You know, it's like dealing with scans, dealing with this or that. And then when you get to your home, you know, it's like after a day of work, I want to have fun. So my intention is always like the reason why I sculpt like primary and secondary forms all at the same time, kind of like as a sketch, is because I'm more interested in capturing the essence of the person. You know, it's like the little smile that she has, or the expression with the eyes, whatever it is, before like technicalities get in the way, you know? So I kind of like try to keep like very, very free flowing and just have fun with the character itself. But yeah, answering to your question, definitely you would have to model at this point like the neutral if you're going for a production model, you know?
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, Chris, can I just ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, sure.
So do you have any opinion on sculpting eyes open versus sculpting eyes closed? Is there a preference? It doesn't matter.
For production or?
Yeah, sure. Production, I guess.
Oh yeah, for production, definitely open. Not like not wide open, but the neutral open. You know, neutrally open. And
Okay.
then, yeah, and then you can sculpt like the super wide version of it, and the squint and all that stuff comes next. But yeah. So what I'm doing here, I'm just like digging this area a little bit deeper, and I'm going to start observing some of the other forms I can see from there. So for example, you see like how I got to exaggerate here so you can see what I mean. So you see I have this line here that's doing this, which is very weird. See, like there's a depth in there. I don't see that in her. This is just like a reminiscent from my sketch. So, you know, it's not like I was being super careful with anything. So right now I can start refining the forms. So I'm going to bring this line a little bit more from the top in there and start filling up that gap. Smooth it out a little bit. Normally what the people model, you know, so when they're modeling the nasolabial fold, it kind of like starts and ends in here and doesn't influence the nose at all. And the cool thing about this is that it normally continues. You can look at right here at this corner. This line is going to continue. And in some people, this is going to start wrapping around that. I'm going to exaggerate so you can see it. You get like this nice volume that wraps all the way around. And obviously, they're going to be doing like a much like not simpler, but like much more subtle way. But I still going to start doing this kind of like half hook in there, kind of like going towards that. And then obviously, like this whole area here is going to be tricky to get exactly what she has in there, because you see like the depth actually goes and folds underneath. So one thing I can do here, I can use maybe like some mask to make sure that I can go deep enough. I can just mask all the way to the edge of the fold. Like that. I can actually go further in here. And then I can switch to my move brush and maybe try to dig this under it a little bit. Just bring it like that. So I get a little bit deeper in there, separate a little bit more like that. And then keep going with it. So a little bit deeper now. And then there's the right? Like, so if you get this, like, depending on the lighting you're gonna get, you're gonna see, for example, here, in her case, it's very, very round. But some people have, let's say, if I switch to something like, not the edge polish, let's do like S polish. Let's see what gonna be a good brush for that. Let's see a trim. Let's see a trim adaptive, something like that. And maybe like with a low intensity. So yeah, something like that. So actually the adaptive, let's try trim dynamic. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so sometimes you're gonna see in some people a little bit more defined, you know, it's like the angle. When it changes the angle, you're gonna see that there is a flat area facing the lower end, and then another one is gonna start on top. So you can actually sculpt that way depending on the model you have. Even if later on you're gonna be smoothing things out to create like this kind of you know, face that she has in there, like the forms the way she has. But it's cool sometimes to just exaggerate those planes so they are very clear. For example, like if you define this plane right here, starting from the eyebrow, you're gonna see there is the temporalis line right here, and then go all the way down here, and then you have your zygomatic right here, and then this entire area is flat on the side. So what I can do, I can try to simulate that by using this trim dynamic here, for example, or some other tool, and just like flatten this area on the side. And then I'm gonna flatten a little bit on that side, and then all the way here to try to discover what that plane is on the side, right? So you can go more towards like, you know, it's like if you have this one, you can actually build up now towards this area here. So I'm gonna fill up this a little bit more and fill up a little bit the side here as well. So a combination of the clay build up with either a trim or the H polish. Some of those brushes I used to use the clay, the H polish a lot, but I swear like in some of those versions of ZBrush, they might have changed a few little things here and there that I don't think the behavior is exactly the same anymore. So I think it might be an impression, but I have the impression that the H polish changed a little bit. Like, I don't know if the algorithm they're using in there changed, but I feel the difference, you know. So apparently like the trim dynamic would do like a better job for what I need. It's very important to go like at all times go from other angles, right? See, her face is still too flat. But the other thing is that the eyes, you have to make sure that they read like they are spherical. And in the case here, what was happening yesterday is that this corner here was, for example, like kind of like triangular like that. So make sure that you pop them out, you know, so I can make sure that it looks like a semicircle when you see it from the bottom. Same for the forehead. You see, like I have the brow region here. It looks a little wonky. So slowly we're going to start actually smoothing things out and making things more round. Same for the forehead. If it's too square, you're going to start like popping stuff and making sure that it reads a little bit more round. So important to look from this different angles, you know. Make sure that you, for example, have enough curvature, because you remember like this muzzle has to have like an arc inside, which is the, you know, the teeth. So basically like it has to wrap around the teeth. A very common mistake is to not have enough of that. So when you look at the model from the profile, this whole thing here looks very flat. Oops, I think I changed my, the focal shift. That's why it's creating those lines. So sometimes you see from the front, it looks great. And then you look from the side, it was like, oh, it's flat. So always making sure that you have like enough curvature, you know. Same, this curvature is gonna basically echo towards the nose, which is very simple in here still. I'm gonna have to start actually define this nose much better. Slightly, you're gonna just like carve a little bit more in there and start adding more detail. But yeah, and then I'm gonna start looking for other areas in here. I know that I'm still on the you know, primary forms, trying to search for them. But as usual, I try to actually incorporate like secondary stuff as well. So for example, like she has this little hook in here, which is very, very cool. It's a little bit out of place in my model here. I'm gonna have to switch and make this whole area longer later. But around here, that form that I mentioned before, which I can see only in this angle, I cannot see right there. Remember that at this point, I'm sculpting everything symmetrically. So in my brain, I'm actually averaging everything I see. So I try to like, okay, it's very asymmetrical, but I want some of those forms basically in both sides at first. And then once we have everything projected into our actual base mesh with topology and everything, we're gonna keep going with that all the way until we put like some of the first pass detail in it, including the pores. And then only there, after we put the pores on, we're gonna start breaking up the symmetry. I know it's a little counterproductive if you think about like, how can I get to nail a likeness if I cannot break the symmetry, because some people are so asymmetrical. How is that possible? It's not possible. You're not going to be able to nail the likeness straight away. But at the same time, the great advantage is that you're not going to be sculpting thousands of pores twice. You know, you're going to sculpt just one side and then switch. Now, one thing that you can do that I encourage my students to do when they ask me about it is that if you are having a really hard time nailing the likeness, it's basically impossible at that point. What you can do, you can break the symmetry as soon as you project your model to the base mesh. Break the symmetry straight away, but before you do that, you save a morph target, right? Or save a morph target, or even better, export that as an OBJ. And then you create a symmetrical version of the model and keep sculpting on that. So that's gonna be the one you're gonna be using the HD geometry. You're gonna sculpt everything symmetrically. At any time, you can just switch back and forth between one model to the other one. And then the detail is gonna basically conform to it. And you have access to an asymmetrical and a symmetrical model, you know? So that's another way to do it. You can even save like multiple versions of the model, since we're not gonna be relying on layers for anything. You can save like multiple versions of that model and then just like load them as you feel convenient, you know? So the cool thing here now is that I have multiple resolutions. So very quickly, I can just like smooth out this whole thing. And keep going, like, you know, it's like I can use this very low res to tweak my base mesh, and then go higher and higher to go towards more like the, you know, the secondary forms and all that stuff. So I'm gonna bring this a little bit more inwards, gonna make her face a little bit narrower around here. This area gonna bring in as well. Got a little round in there, so probably gonna bring this whole area in as well to make it a little bit less round. You still have to pay attention to the shape of the cranium. So from the top, normally what happens is that you get this area here narrower like that, and then it starts getting wider and wider towards the back until you have like almost like an egg shape, like, you know, upside down like that. So you're gonna have like definitely an angle, like narrow in the front and then wider in the back. But it's gonna definitely have like lots of variations depending on the person. Another thing you can use as a guide is this. For example, like if you have your temporalis line, if I look at my little skulls in here as a reference, so we have like a, you know, you're gonna have like this form right here. And then this one is gonna become basically, gonna go down here, and it's gonna become your zygomatic bone. I'm gonna go towards the ear. And then from here, it's gonna come and become like kind of like a triangle around here, right? So you're gonna have a form, you know, kind of like that. And then from here, this is gonna start curving towards like becoming this temporalis muscle, which is a very interesting one, right? Like this whole area here, like this zygomatic bone, it has actually a cavity in there. If you look at the skeleton itself, and it has a cavity, and then this muscle here goes underneath it and connects to your masseter, which is like the masseter is this big muscle right here, right? It's even bigger. And so basically like this muscle here goes underneath it, and it connects underneath this whole structure and plugs right into the jaw. So basically like when you're like chewing something, you can see like the movement happening here, because this is basically like the muscle responsible for pulling the jaw up, right? Like it's kind of like it goes from underneath in there. Obviously supported by other muscles and everything, but this is like the major one in here. So this is an important grouping here that I'm doing. So I'm gonna just like keep going with this one here. And you see that now from the front, I can see that line kind of starting to flare out like that. If I look at like an actual skull, you have this curvature going towards the back. And then one thing that I do sometimes when I'm just like sketching something without a lot of references in there, I try to use that line. It's almost like a landmark to where I'm gonna have a little bit more of a kind of like a depression, and then gonna bring this one out. So basically I'm gonna fill up the temporalis muscle in here, keeping that curvature And then from that point on, I'm going to start like flaring out slightly right there. And that's going to be the point where I'm going to change direction here. So I can actually, you know, make it a little bit more oval or whatever you want to do. But using that kind of like as a little reference in there for change of direction. It's even like a little bit narrower around there. And then this is basically going to have like a little ridge, depending on if the person is going to be more visible or not. So once you have that in place, you can actually start like either with smoothing out, or you can keep playing with the planes, you know, and things like that. But it's just like a little landmark in there. Still like not sure about the shape of her cranium because of, you know, all the hair and all that stuff, but just like starting to sketch a little bit more anatomical in there, but without knowing exactly what's going to happen. So the other things here, I mean, like I'm not going to sculpt her mouth open, obviously. So I'm going to have to switch back to my other reference. Same lady. Let's see where she is. This guy. Oh, she looks so cute, man. She's such a cute little lady.
Chris, your final will be with mouth closer or open?
It's going to be based on this one here.
Yeah. Better. I
yeah.
like this better.
I think so, yeah. The other one, she looks a little funny, right? Like she looks like a kind of like a wise little witch. The other one, but this one, she looks like a old Chun-Li, right? From Street Fighter.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, she's like Chun-Li, man. She looks so cute. So yeah, I'm gonna keep going with this one. But you see, like for example, like this whole area here that looks a little bit, you know, lower. It kind of looks a little bit closer in here, just like in terms of the position. Just like it changed so much with the angles and all that stuff. Kind of like I tried to adapt to that other one. I would have to chase that for a while. But again, like this type of stuff, like for likeness, is the kind of stuff you're gonna have to chase for a while, you know. And if I'm doing something like a little bit more of like a creature, then I can give myself a lot of freedom. My intention is to actually, in a few of those future classes, is to actually explore more of that, what was basically like the theme of my challenge, which was like mixing like an animal with the humans. And I think I'm going to be exploring more of that, you know. My intention is to actually have like three of those classes being like ethnicities, different ethnicities, which is like the Native American, then the African, and now this lady. But even in this one here, I'm already thinking about being more creative about it, and just have fun with mixing some elements like an elf or something like that, you know, make this kind of like a fairy kind of lady, because she looks kind of like a little fairy, like a wise little lady.
Chris, are you going to show us any clothing?
Clothing, probably not, but I can show you like the stuff I did in the past. Which is basically like all hand sculpted, you know. I don't use Marvelous Designer. In the past, I mean, like I used some stuff for clothing that was basically like just inside of Maya, just using any cloth. And N-cloth actually helped like to create the curtains I have in the background for some of my shots that I do, like kind of like clay renders and stuff. But I never used Marvelous Designer, you know. I know that Ian Springs, the other guy who does some amazing portraits, he sculpts everything by hand as well, which is kind of like, it's kind of a similar approach I think we have, you know. It's like it's being more artistic about it. So it's not like we are creating something for production, but rather exploring like artistic possibilities and hoping that people are gonna try to implement some of those like within the studio, you know, of course, like if you have the chance to. But a lot of stuff that happens in studios is so automatic, you know. It's just like it's not like super exciting work for a lot of times. And I just want to make sure that those classes are fun, you know, in the first place. Like otherwise, I would not be able to do them if it's not fun for me. You know, like working a full-time job and then teaching at night, it's not easy. So like if I'm not having fun, this would not be a good experience. And I want you guys to have fun too, you know. It's like really go to town with your models, you know. Like I said yesterday, I'm here to help with whatever you're doing. If it's something like you did in the past and is a model that's just like trying to push further during this class, let's use that. If it's something you really want to challenge yourself and start from scratch, let's do that. You know, anything that works for us, as long as we are having a good time, you know, it's like sculpting. That's the, I mentioned yesterday, and I'm being sincere, you know, it's like, I'm not a master of anything, you know, I'm competent about using different things, you know, it's like creating a final image that looks cool, you know, and I want to try to give as much as possible that kind of, you know, tool set for you guys to be able to create something that, you know, with creating results, basically, you know, something that actually looks cool at the end. But really trying to help as much as I can with the stuff I know, you know. So this line here for the lips is a very interesting one. The lips, they can be very tricky. In her case here is going to be quite simple for me because it doesn't have a lot of the upper lips visible, right? Like she has very thin ones. But the general rule for lips is that you have 3 forms in the top and then 2 in the bottom. So basically, like, you're going to have the center one here. I'm going to exaggerate so you can see. You're going to have those 2 little pillows on the sides. So it's like 1, 2, 3. And then in the bottom is just 2. So it's just like this 2 big pillows that go like that, right? So those are like the main forms that we're going to be working with. Now, within this context in here, now we're going to have to pay attention to certain things like angle, for example. So if we look from the profile in here, you see like the angle in here, I could go deeper with the center. So I'm going to go to change the angle more into a 45-degree for the lower lip. So I'm just going to select like the cavity itself in here. And very loosely, because this is still a concept, reverse the mask. And I'm going to bring this in with a big brush in here. Like that. And then I can close it up later. So now let's try to smooth out this lower part here, maybe like with a little bit of clay buildup, and then smooth and remove some of that to create a little bit of that angle from the profile. Let's smooth. You can go even higher with the smooth. Maybe too high right there. Let's just mask the top first. Okay, let's do it again. So now I have a little bit more of a shelf, because without that shelf, it's not going to look that good. And then I can fill it up again. Oops, too high. So now I'm going to create that little pillow in here. I'm going to start redefining the lips themselves. I can actually bring this pillows here. Oh, now my smooth is too strong. Let's see. Oh, here's a trick for you guys. If you watched like one of those previous classes, you probably saw me doing this. But there's a trick I learned with one of my students that was very, very cool, which is like, let's pretend your topology, for example, like you have your topology right here, and trying to slide stuff around without losing the form itself, right? Like normally, like you do this by relaxing things in Maya, for example, right? Or some other software. But let's see if we're gonna do this in ZBrush. There's a little trick in here, it's pretty cool. So let's say I wanna bring those lines in here closer to this nasolabial, but I like the forms I have, so I don't wanna lose anything I already did. So you just go to your morph target, and you can just store a morph target, right? And now you can go to town with this. You can just get like a move topological, for example. And now I'm gonna bring those lines closer to what I want to have, kind of like this. This is for later, obviously, when you have your topology and everything, but just like an example here. So I'm gonna just change this to look a little bit more, you know, according to what I want for those areas, something like that. And then you're gonna do this. You're just gonna click Project Morph, and then you're gonna go all the way up and then release it. Look at that. It projects back for you. So basically, like you change, slide the everything around without losing the main form. Obviously, it's all the forms that are on the subdivision levels that are higher than this, gonna be carried as well. So you have to be careful, because if you have like super fine detail, that fine detail is going to slide with it, right? So you have to be careful the way you do it. But it's pretty cool that you can do that. And I was thinking about like using that for the lips here, for example. This is like the highest resolution I have, for example. And definitely I can do here. I can create the morph target right here. So star morph target that's stored. So I can actually slide this stuff to get a little bit more topology maybe right there. And then I can actually move this out and then really smooth this entire thing like that. Just to kind of like even those lines a little bit more. Just get like that. Maybe create more of that little curvature in there. So let's see, I kind of smooth it out quite a bit, but let's see what happens if I project morph. It's gonna take a little longer because it's higher resolution, but there you go. So the forms are all back in place now with the topology that follows the form a little bit better. So that's a cool little trick that that's from Omid. Yeah, he's an excellent artist, and he gave us some very cool tips during that whole class. But yeah, it's like from this point on, what I'm gonna keep doing is basically exploring those extra forms I'm gonna see. So for example, you see like around here, around her eyes, it's not only the eyelid that goes all the way up like I have in there. It kind of ends a little bit sooner right here. There's a little line where it's ending. And then there's the little kind of like a negative space, not negative space, but the cavity that happens all the way around it. So I'm gonna start observing this type of thing, you know, it's like, for example, carving deeper in here. If I carve a little deeper, what's gonna happen is that you're gonna get more of that skeleton kind of like forms that I was mentioning yesterday, right? As people age, things get more hollow and closer to the bone structures. So I'm gonna start to observe all that stuff, like, you know, it's like incorporating a little bit more form around the eyebrows. If you look closely here, for example, there is a line that's breaking up the eyebrow around there. It's very complex, you know, it's like the first thought is always like, okay, I just have to do something like this, right? Just add something like that and then it's done. But if you start looking at all those forms, for example, if I draw in here for you guys to see, what I'm seeing around there, it's something like this. I'm just gonna do in this side here. So I see a line going down right there, but then there's a kind of like a sharp turn, slight like that. Then I have like those lines going, one goes like this, right? Like it has a little, goes down a little bit. I have a secondary one wrinkle in there. I have a third one on the top. It's just very loose here what I'm doing. And then I see, you know, it's like a little bit of a curvature in here. It can be from the eyebrow, whatever it is. And then there's a little break that goes around here. It's kind of like right there. It's a very subtle one. And then you have like more lines, for example, like I have one in here and another one going up, right? I have that form. All those things, I have to start like looking further and further. So for example, if I observe that form in there, now I'm gonna have to fill up and see how the whole thing works in terms of planes. So for example, I'm gonna add more volume to that. I'm gonna have to reduce some of the volume around here just to build that form. Start building up more of this form in here, making sure that when I change direction in here, I have enough of an angle underneath it to change the direction of that form. And then I'm gonna make it softer. So all those things, they are very, very subtle things, you know, it's like the more you look at something, you know, it's like at first sight is always like super simplified, you know, it's like things are very simple. And then as you start to break things up, you're gonna see more and more of those details, you know. And then that's the fun part for me, to observe all those nuances that make like all those changes in the directions in the forms and everything, because that's where the gravity is gonna be felt, you know, it's like you're gonna feel the gravity happening during those folds sculpting. You're gonna see, you know, it's like the age, like the history in the face. There's a lot of very interesting forms happening there. But, you know, it's like I already broke my symmetry. I don't wanna do that, so I'm gonna just basically gonna go back in here. Or, I mean, if it's symmetrical, you can do this. I can just like do very cheap thing here. Is like go to deformation and can go to Smart Resim. Make sure you have X selected and just boom. And now I have everything symmetrical. So I got some of those forms for free, but obviously it's not gonna be like that. It's gonna, you know, because she's not gonna be symmetrical, but at least you get some stuff in there. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna be from this point on for the next hour or so. I'm going to be exploring some of those forms. Everything I mentioned to you guys, for example, like really going to town, observing things. So I have the forms in place, like in terms of like a nice little sketch to start from. But then from this point on, I'm going to do what I was showing you guys before, exploring more of those planes, trying to identify where they are, around here, around there, the side of the face, the zygomatic bone. There's a plane right in the front right here, right? There's another plane right in the front right here, and then it folds into this corner, right? There's a little plane right underneath it. The nose has planes as well. So underneath the nose, you're gonna have like little flatter areas, and especially around here as well. So all those things are gonna start adding to the model and try to break things up like more and more as I go. So between now and let's say 2 hours from now, I should post another update on this model. I should have some more of this stuff, but without going too crazy, because I want to make sure that you guys are seeing as much as possible during class. So I definitely going to refine this model more right now, but hopefully not like too crazy, you know, something that you're going to be missing something much more important. And then tomorrow we're going to be basically like revising the stuff I did and explain a little bit further, you know. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed like at least like the lighting part. That I hope you guys feel excited to do at least like an initial render. You know, it was very cool for me to see the model render, even it's very rough, but just to see something in there. You know, it's like a it's very important to start feeling the character. You know, if it is what you expect it to be or not. But yeah, pretty cool.
Hey Chris.
Yes.
If how long would you expect renders to be if you were at, like, say, the Peach Fuzz stage?
Oh yeah. Well, that's a good question. So the computer I was using to this point was a Dual Xeon 2.97, and it had 16 cores. It sounds pretty fancy, but I bought that computer used from eBay for $1,000. I can even point you guys to some of those offers in there. It's still a really good computer, you know. But in that computer, I was taking, I would say, 900 by 900. If it was a shot that was kind of like similar to this one, instead of like a super close-up would be probably like 45 minutes or even an hour. But if it's something like this, it would take probably like half an hour to render in that machine. Now, if you have a laptop, for example, then with like a, let's say like a 4 processor or something, then definitely going to be more than that, you know. So you should expect like an hour for that render specifically. But it's going to be a matter of like how many samples you're using for your anti-alias, you know. If you're keeping around like 6, you should be fine. But if you want to like a crisp render with nice, like especially with hair, you're going to have to crank the samples a little bit higher. Then you can expect like like larger. What's your computer right now, just out of curiosity?
No, honestly, I don't know. It has a RAM of 64.
That's good, yeah.
Which I recently did, but it's still, I'm getting renders of like upwards of like almost 2 hours.
Almost 2 hours for
Yeah.
that resolution you posted?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, no, I haven't posted anything with the hair yet.
oh, okay.
With the hair, yeah, it's like really ramped it up.
Yeah, but I tell you, man, like in relation to what I used to experience with like previous versions of any software with hair, I'm actually surprised how fast Arnold renders hair, you know. It's just a matter of like, yeah, obviously if you want to get like a nice clean result, you're going to have to crank those samples, and then it gets really, yeah.
Okay, just wondering.
Yeah. But out of like, if you want to feel the pain, I mean, like you can ask Roger Magrini, who is one of our students in the group, and he posted recently this what's the guy who I forgot his name. Let's see, let's look in here. He is actually using a laptop, man, for all his work, and I don't think it's super fancy, and he's still doing some very cool stuff. Let's see, Roger, what's his model again here? Let's see. Yeah, this guy right here. So Roger, he's like 23 years old. He's a super young guy. He's doing all this work with the hair and everything, and he's all in the laptop. So I think you can just like you know, ask him like, what's the render times for all those shots, and then he's a very nice guy. He's probably gonna tell you. It's definitely something you can do, right? Like because he's doing his laptop, but I bet that the render times are getting a little, you know, crazy for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
All right, guys.
Have you done any comparisons? Have you done any comparisons with your new build at all from your old renders?
I did, man. I did. The shots that are taking like an hour for the close-ups are taking now between 15 and 16 minutes.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's like 4 times faster. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And then for the other ones that are taking like half an hour, it's like just a few minutes, you know, like 7 minutes or so. It's pretty crazy, yeah. Because it's
awesome.
64 cores, you know, it's just beast.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing just like using it like for other stuff, just like orbiting around Maya and all this stuff. I'm not feeling the power. I think it's because of the graphics card for some reason.
No, single cores in this CPUs with many cores have less power than single core. And Ubert uses single core, so
single core, right?
I don't know if single core, but 4 cores, 6 cores, something like that.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that each one of the cores is also faster than the previous computer. That one was 2.97, and this one here, it kind of like it threads like between like I think it's like 3 point something and then 4.5. No, 4.2 I think is the maximum it reaches. But it was supposed to work faster even at like single core things, but it still feels a little slower. The funny thing is that before I moved it in here, I was testing with the old AMD card and it was working faster. So I wonder if it's something like a AMD card married with the AMD graphics card, you know. But I bet if I put like a much faster, like a more modern NVIDIA, it's gonna fly too, you know. But like I said yesterday, I'm expecting someone to actually offer that, and I think I have a deal, you know. It's like apparently I have to be the judge for a challenge, and then in exchange I can get a card. So that's good. So let's see if that happens.
Hey, Chris,
yeah.
What about Dynamesh and ZeroMesh and stuff in ZBrush? Do you notice any difference?
Dynamesh.
Threadripper?
Dynamesh. Oh man, that's a good question. I didn't notice that much. I mean, like exporting maps, for example, is the only thing I can tell you. When I use HD geometry, the tendency is to actually export 5 8K maps, which is basically what I use. It's like 5 8K maps. Displacement exporting between 6 and 8 minutes. So like it's super fast. That's why one of the reasons I use HD. It's like 6 to 8 minutes, just like to 5 maps 8K. And then when I tried on the Threadripper, it was around the same time. You know, it didn't increase, like didn't make that time like faster for some reason. So I'm not sure if it's some bottleneck or whatever is happening. I have to keep pushing further. One thing I tell you guys is that there is an application that comes with a Threadripper. Actually, came with a motherboard that actually tweaks, like overclocks things automatically for you. It's like it's an Asus motherboard, and it's a very high-end motherboard too. And this app is supposed to actually test everything, so it tests a lot of frequencies and everything, and overclocks to something that's supposed to be safe. So I did that. I just ran it, and I was like, okay, let's run with safe values. And I was getting like random crashes and stuff, you know. And then as soon as I removed the software completely, you know, to like the default everything, now everything is super stable, you know. So I'm pretty sure it's something in there. I thought it would do a good job overclocking, but at some point, you know, it's like, why do I need to overclock a beast? You know, it's like, let's keep the way it is. But I'm feeling that, you know, it's like, at least for like regular stuff is not as fast as I expect it to be. But it might be from like with the graphics card, you know, because like I said, this kind of stuff here, I really felt a difference when I had the AMD, and it's an old card, and now this one sometimes it kind of stutters a little bit, you know. So I don't know. It's a combination. It's that whole thing about like building your own stuff. You have to find the optimal setup, and the computer that I got like from like refurbished from eBay, I paid $1,000 plus the 1070 card. That's another $300, so $1,300 for that computer. And it's a Z620 HP, so it's the same workstation we use at work at ILM. It's just a much faster version of, you know, we use like even slower than that at ILM. But and it works like it's rock solid. It's like when it crashes, it's normally some crash related either to ZBrush or to Maya, something that normally happens anyway. But in terms of stability, I keep like running 24/7. Now this new machine, I'm running it 24/7 for the last week, and it's been pretty stable. It's just like I'm not too happy with with the regular stuff happening, but eventually I'm gonna find that sweet spot, and I think this thing's gonna fly, especially with the new cards. Yeah.
What would be the reason if your renders were like 4 or 5 hours? Because I had a couple that were like that, and then I imported everything and got it back down towards like 2.
That's one thing. One thing that you have to be careful with Maya is that I use Maya for 20 years, man, and I never seen these people like fixing all the bugs ever, right? Like they kind of like, if anything gets buggier every time. But there's one thing that happens sometimes. There's a corruption that happens with the system in there, and I don't know exactly what it is, but exactly like you said, if I want to clean it up when something gets super sluggish, I select all the objects in the scene, cameras, everything. I export selection as an MB file, right? And then I start a brand new scene, and I just import everything. The only thing you have to do is actually redo all the settings for the render at that point, and that's it. As soon as you do that, like you can use the exact same values and the renders speed up. So sometimes it's a corruption, Yeah, so that's something you have to keep an eye out for that. If it gets very sluggish, it's one thing we can try,
Okay, cool.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go and gonna let you go and gonna do some more sculpting here because the models are not gonna build themselves. We have to keep sculpting them, and then gonna upload the video in about 2 hours. Just a little disclaimer, yesterday when I uploaded the video, I noticed the size of the video was just 300 megabytes for like 2 hours. And I was very surprised. And I think it's one setting that in Zoom, you have to check that's basically like make this video kind of like compatible with like a editing software. There's a setting there that's something like that. And I did a test right after that. When I clicked that one, I think the video quality got improved. So the one from yesterday, obviously you can see everything, it's in there, but there's a little bit more compression than I was expecting. And I think the setting I did yesterday, I think solved that problem. So let's see if that's the deal. We're gonna see it today. All right, guys, have a good one. I hope you're enjoying and keep creating, keep doing stuff.
All right, thanks.
Thanks,
Good night.
guys.
Thanks,
You
Chris.
too.
Bye.
Bye.